All right, welcome everyone at the Buying a Home in Utrecht webinar. I'll wait another minute for others to join, and then we'll start. All right, let's give it a go. Again, welcome everyone. Today's session will be recorded and shared with you after the webinar. My name is Rick van Hemert. I'm an expat buying manager at EHN. I'm from the Netherlands. More than 23 years ago, I was born in Utrecht, and I lived my entire life around the city, um, except from some time abroad in Colombia and South Africa. So I do know the city quite well. Um, but of course, I also like to know you a little bit. Today, I'm not doing this webinar by myself. My colleague Ludo is joining me as well. Maybe Ludo, you can shortly introduce yourself as well.
Sure thing. If you can already start the poll, we'll give we'll give everyone some time to. I don't know if you were able to do so.
All right, perfect.
So now everyone should have the opportunity to fill in the poll a little bit, share with us who we're actually talking to. Always nice to know. Not obligated, of course, but well, if you want to share something, that is always nice. I myself am Udo Karelse. I am a buying manager in the Amsterdam region. So if you are still doubting between Utrecht and Amsterdam, then you'll either be in contact with Rick or with me. Been with EHN for a little over 1.5 years now, and well, very much enjoying the job here. Born and raised in the Netherlands, have lived in the United States for a few years, and then came back to join the Expat Housing Network team. That's me. I'll be, by the way, good to know is that we do have a Q&A option as well. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A or in the chat. I'll be answering all the questions during the webinar. If they're not answered yet, all of them we'll handle them completely at the end. But if you do have questions during the webinar, feel free to pop them there. Then I will be your answer guy. All right, that's it. We'll end the poll. Thanks very much for filling in. I think we have a lot of people that are deciding to buy because of the rents being too high, which I totally understand.
All right, perfect. Then we'll get to that later. Since I'm doing this webinar with Ludo, we think greatness is achieved in the agency of others. It's not only me and Ludo. We work with a great team. Yeah, for example, Katie, she's from Cyprus, living in Rotterdam. So as Ludo just explained, we're not really only Utrecht, but we work in different cities such as Rotterdam, The Hague, Groningen, Eindhoven. I think all of us, we together, we speak quite some different languages. So maybe we can learn something from each other. But a great team and all doing their ultimate best to help you guys out. A brief introduction about EHN. As said, we are no traditional real estate agents, since we are expats ourselves, or if we're Dutch, we lived abroad. We help with either buying and renting, and we charge a fixed fee. So a lot of real estate agents or brokers, they charge 1 or 2% of the purchase price. Well, we don't believe in that policy. We think we offer the same service to someone who's purchasing a property of 800,000 euros, as well as to someone who's purchasing for 300,000 euros. So you know what to pay. And yeah, again, we know what it's like to settle in a new country. Then what is our added value? So selling agents, they take our offers more seriously. First of all, we make sure everything what should be in the offer is in there. But also due to our network, or probably selling agents worked with us before, they know that it's not likely that we will pull out or that the deal will not go through. Also, because of our network, we can sometimes book viewings when it's no longer possible. I don't know if you guys experience this with planning viewings, but sometimes it can be very hard in order to book those. And then, yeah, due to our network, we can sometimes get the final spot. Third bullet, we support it by reviewing Dutch legal and property documents, especially if you don't speak the Dutch language. Legal documents can be very hard to understand. We'll make sure that you know everything what you should know by diving into those documents. As said, some of our colleagues are Dutch, so they yeah, know those documents by heart. Then the fourth bullet, very important. I will explain to you this point more into detail later on, but we help you define the market value through market data. The market value is a very, very important number to know since you can only finance 100% of the market value. But I'd love to explain you this later on. Um, Finally, we will inform you about rules and regulations. So each property has its own rules, regulations, or restrictions. This could be a self-occupancy clause, but also in terms of regulations regarding maintaining your property. Another one, we make sure you don't make the same mistakes as we made. We've all been through the process of finding a property in the Netherlands, but also abroad. And we totally understand how difficult it can be. The content of today, so first we have a short introduction, then we'll talk a little bit more about the market, first about the Netherlands, and then more specifically on the Utrecht market. Then the topic of savings, very important when you're buying a house. 3 tips to win the market. And then in the end, we will cover everything together by going over the timeline. Again, Ludo, can you create this beautiful poll to
That's why we're here with the two of us. Huh? So always good to know. Maybe we can tailor a little bit the webinar to you guys, where you are in the process. If you are just researching or you already made an offer. We've had sometimes that people already have an offer accepted. That is amazing, but then you're definitely in a different stage. But also if you've had a chat with an agent, buying agent, or with a mortgage advisor already. Always nice to know. See that the majority is still in the researching phase. I think one person has already done a viewing, which is also cool. And then the majority has not had a chat with an expert yet.
Then I think it's good that you're here in order to gain some important information.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about the market. So the last numbers, Q1 of 2022, the average purchase price in the Netherlands was 426,000 euros. If we look at the average purchase price a year before, you see there's a difference of 40K. Yeah, I think everyone is aware that the prices have been rising quite fast. So yeah, it doesn't surprise us. Then we look at the new builds. They are a little bit more expensive. So the average purchase price of a new build property last quarter was 466,000 euros and 66,500. Yeah, also those prices are increasing with everything going on in the world right now. Materials get more expensive. Yeah, that's why. And then below we see a graph of the developments of the purchase price in the past years. You can see there's a decrease from 2008 until 2013. Of course, we had the crisis, but as of 2013, prices increased, and especially the last years quite fast. Then a little bit more on the Utrecht market. The first number, the average purchase price in Utrecht, it's 505,000 euros last quarter. Apart from or after Amsterdam, Utrecht is the second most expensive city within the Randstad. So that's Utrecht, Den Haag, Rotterdam, and Amsterdam. And again, also here you see prices rose by 16.7% in a year. you see there's a little bit more properties coming onto the market, 12% compared to more than the quarter before. The market, there's a lot going on. There was not that much available on the market, but due to an increase of interest rates, people are more willing to sell their properties. Of course, also the price per square meter increased with a significant percentage, and the average sales times, it's 21 days, so it's 3 weeks, and it's minus 22% compared to last year. So you can see the market is going very fast. Then, if we look at some market drivers, so what causes the prices to increase? First of all, there are some fiscal benefits, the tax exemption. If you're buying your first property in the Netherlands below 400,000 euros and you are under 35 years old, you don't have to pay any transfer tax. If you purchase a property of 500,000 euros and you're still under the 35 years old, unfortunately, you do have to pay 2% transfer tax. But let's say you're buying with a partner and you are 34 and your partner is 37. That means that only one of you has to pay the transfer tax. So then you pay 1% transfer tax. For investors, it's a little bit different. Investors have to pay 8% transfer tax, and it will be 9% next year. Then the interest rebate, so the interest you pay on your mortgage, it's tax deductible. No capital gains. What do we mean by that? So there are a lot of persons in the Netherlands that purchased a property a while ago. Of course, as I said, prices increased dramatically in the past year, so 20%, I think, for the past 2 years. So they have a huge profit on their property. If they sell their property and they invest the value in a new property, they don't have to pay any tax on that. So therefore, I think especially for starters, it's quite hard to compete against those, which of course increase the prices. Then we have a tax-free parent donation. As of now, parents are allowed to donate around 106,000 euros without paying tax if their children are purchasing property. It says ending. Why is that? As of next year, this will be lowered to around 30K, something like that. So significantly decrease. And as of 2024, this is not applicable anymore. But of course, within the current market, we have to deal with this situation. Low interest rates. Interesting topic. Of course, we all know, I think, that interest rates have been rising for the past months, and especially in the beginning, quite fast. It is more or less stabilizing, so they are not rising as fast as the past months. But with low interest rates, we mean looking at the historical view. Of course, interest rates are around maybe at 3%, but we've had much higher rates. So money is still relatively cheap to borrow. And then Ludo said in the beginning, most of you are here because the rental prices are too high or really high. If you compare what you can get when renting a property and spending the same amount, of course, on a mortgage, then you would get more when you purchase a property. Plus, of course, you build up some equity. So therefore, there's a lot of people looking into buying a property. And then the final bullet, which I think is the most important one, a lack of supply. Basic economics, you have supply and demand, and they define the price. Well, currently in the Netherlands, we have a shortage of 300,000 houses, and we can't fill up the gap within 1 or 2 years. Of course, the government are taking some action onto this. They're planning to build 900,000 houses until 2030. But as of now, the max the Netherlands built was around 70,000 houses. So I would say it's an interesting goal of them. We'll have to see. As I just said, I don't think we can fill up this gap within 1, 2, or even 3 years. So therefore, it is still expecting, or you still see the increase of prices, even though the interest rates are rising as well. So other news. So there are some regulations regarding renting your property out. So the self-occupancy obligation, if you're purchasing a property in Utrecht up to a WOZ value of 440,000 euros, you're not allowed to rent it out. There are some exceptions. For example, if you're traveling, then I think you're allowed to rent it out for a year, or if you're renting it out to a family member, but otherwise it's not possible. So definitely something to check if you're looking to buy a property as an investment. Then the NHG, National Mortgage Guarantee. So the National Mortgage Guarantee is a fiscal regulation which benefits buyers to get a better interest rate. And the limit used to be 325,000 euros. As of this year, it's 355. And then the last one, of course, I think I already explained it. Interest rates are rising, but due to the shortage of houses, prices are still expected to increase for this year. It is slowing down, so we won't see the 20% increases as last year and the year before, but still prices are rising. And then maybe after that, we see a more healthy growth. Again, it's not expected that prices will drop in the coming years. Then the topic of savings, very important, as I just said in the beginning. What would you need in order to start with purchasing a property? We have a nice overview over here. So the first one is transfer tax. Again, I explained it already. If you're under 35 and you purchase a property up to 400,000 euros, and it's the first property you buy in the Netherlands, then you don't have to pay. If it's your second property, then unfortunately you have to pay the 2%. Then the notary, we need to sign some deeds at the notary. So the mortgage deed and the transfer deed. Costs are expected between 600 to 1100 euros for each deed. Depends a little bit on the notary you choose. Then if you're purchasing a property with a mortgage, you need to get a mortgage via the bank or with the help of a mortgage advisor. It differs a little bit, but estimated costs are around 1,500 to 3,400. A typical real estate agent will charge you around 1 to 2% of the purchase price. We at EHN don't. We charge fixed fees, so you know upfront what you have to pay. Then we have the appraiser. So if you're applying for a mortgage, you need to provide the bank with a valuation report, which will cost between 650 and 800 euros. Technical inspector, more or less 300 or 435 euros. During your the transfer at the notary, a certified interpreter needs to be there to make sure you understand everything what you sign. More or less 300 euros. Bank guarantee, so you need to provide the notary a bank guarantee or a deposit of 10% of the purchase price. You can either choose to provide them with the bank guarantee, which will cost you 250 euros, or you can transfer 10% of the purchase price. And then finally, if you're making use of the NHG regulations, you need to pay 0.6% of the mortgage amount. But as said, the interest rates are lower, so it's still beneficial for you. Then 3 tips to win in the current market. The most important thing, I would say, value, value, value. Let's explain this to you with an example. So we have this property in Utrecht. The asking price is 395,000 euros. Of course, we know the asking price, but before you make the offer, you do some research. So we define the market value based on comparables. So we look for similar properties in the same street or neighborhood. And yeah, based on the purchase price of the comparables, we see that the market value is 415,000 euros. In order to make a winning offer, unfortunately, you do need to add something on top of that. So therefore, again, it is important to have some savings. But let's say you were able to purchase this property for 435,000 euros. Then the difference between the asking price and the purchase price, it's more or less 10%, so 40K. But the difference between the market value and the purchase price is 20K, so around 5%. Let's take another scenario. So we saw interest rates are going up. The market is cooling down a little bit. So it's the same property, but with another selling agent, let's say, and they decided to put the asking price a little bit lower, so with an asking price of 375. Again, as I said, it's the same property, so the market value is still 415,000 euros, and the purchase price is 435,000 euros. But now, the difference between the purchase price and the asking price, it's 16%. While the difference in between the market value and the purchase price, it's still 20K, so 5%. So therefore, we always say, look at the market value. The asking price is just an invitation from the selling agent to come and view the property. Often we hear like, is there a certain percentage that you need to overbid? Well, as you can see, if the neighbors sold the property with this percentage and they tell you need to overbid with 16% in this neighborhood, and the asking price was 395 as in the first example, then you would have paid too much. So therefore, it is really important to know the value before you make the offer. Then, a winning offer. What is a winning offer? It's not a winning offer is offering a good price, but not always the highest price. For example, if you're making an offer with a very high price, but with a financing clause of 100%, and the sellers are not secure that you'll get a mortgage of 100% of the amount you put in your offer, they're not going to accept it. Second, offer some security to the sellers. So if you have a mortgage advisor or you are in advanced conversations with your bank, ask from a statement which indicates that you're able to get a certain mortgage. Also, offer the least amount of hassle. So what do we mean by that? It is a seller's market. So if the seller, let's say they purchased a property, a new build property, which is only available by the end of the year, be flexible in the transfer date, or be flexible in the furniture, for example. And then finally, offer a personal touch. I wouldn't say it's the most important part, but if the conditions and the price is very close to each other, it can make a difference. Then point 3, due diligence. We have some parties we'd like to involve in the process, the technical inspector and the appraiser. And my question to you guys is, do you book them before or after your offer is accepted? You book the experts after your offer is accepted. Why is that? Of course, you need to pay for the appraiser and the technical expert in order to inspect your property. So if we would have paid those parties before we make the offer, and our offer would be rejected, then we would have lost a lot of money. So directly after your offer is accepted, you book those. In general, before you sign the actual purchase agreement, it will take about 1.5 weeks. So you make sure you have the reports before you sign the purchase agreement. So let's say the inspector found out that there is some moisture issues. Of course, you'd like to know that before you sign. But also, again, very important, the value part. If you know the value before you sign the purchase agreement, then you're more secure, your mortgage will be approved, of course. So again, you book those after your offer is accepted. If you're not able to receive everything before you sign the purchase agreement, there is a cool-off period of 3 days. So you sign the purchase agreement, and then you still have 3 days in order to dissolve the contract or to pull out. So again, if your inspector is not able to provide you the report within those 3 weeks, but you have it 1 day after signing, and it's the property is in a very bad condition, which you did not expect, you're still able to pull out. After those 3 days, you need to pay a penalty of 10% of the purchase price. Obviously, that's something you'd like to avoid, so therefore it's recommended to have everything before. All right. With the timeline, I'd like to explain you the entire process and how we from EHN can help you with everything. So of course, the first thing to do how to start is to define your budget. Talk to a bank or a mortgage advisor before you start the actual search. You need to know how much you're able to spend and how much you're willing to spend on the property. But if you have that clear, you can start the search. Searching for properties in the Netherlands, the main platform is Funda. I think you all know that. But let's say you found something on Funda, then you can reach out to us. And we can obviously help you with booking the viewing. We can attend the viewing with you. And during the viewing, we ask some critical questions. We check what the conditions is of the property. But what I always say, the most important thing is, do you feel at home? If that's the case and you'd like to make an offer, then of course we need to start doing the research. So we'll check the documents, we check the value, and before that, if we have that, we can submit the offer. Once your offer is submitted, then hopefully it will be approved, and then we have the part we just discussed. So then you start booking the technical inspector and the appraiser. Then of course, you discuss everything before you sign the purchase agreement, so there are no red flags anymore. Again, once you've signed the purchase agreement, you have the cool-off period of 3 days, but directly after you signed, you can start applying for your mortgage. This will take about 4 weeks. Depends a little bit. I know it's very busy at the bank currently. So definitely take some time in order to get your mortgage approved. And once your mortgage is approved, everything is ready to go. 1 week before the actual transfer happens, you will receive a statement of completion. What's the statement of completion? It's a final note from the notary indicating what you have to pay. So the transfer tax, the fee to your broker, to your mortgage advisor, the appraiser. You pay everything just before the transfer, and then everything is ready to go. Except before we go to the notary to sign the transfer deed, we will have a final inspection. This is not a technical inspection, but it's just to see if the property is in the same condition as it was during the viewing. For example, let's say they broke something with moving out, then yeah, that's obviously something you don't want. So then you inform the notary about it. They keep a certain amount in their account in order to fix it. And then you have a liability term of 2 months. So if something happens within those 2 months, which did not occur during the technical inspection or the final inspection, and you have the proof that the seller was aware, then you can still hold him liable. But yeah, hopefully that will not happen. Then a little bit more about the services. So EHN, we offer different services. First, the smart package. With the smart package, we are more like an online consult. So how it works, we do all the researches as I just explained. Of course, we help you with booking the experts, we review the contract, some transfer support, but you go to the viewings yourself and book them yourself. If you think I need a little bit more help, I don't know what to ask during viewings or what to look for, then we can offer you a complete package. With this package, we also attend the viewings, book the viewings, and also will attend the expert meetings. But also we offer a new build package. So if you're interested in buying a new build, the process is a little bit different, but we can still help you out. Then we're at the Q&A. So Ludo, maybe you can tell me some questions.
Well, we actually don't have any questions currently. I see that Eliza raised her hand. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat so that we can answer them accordingly. Alex has a question for you. It's regarding a new build. Is it possible to negotiate price when it comes to new builds?
So with new builds, there are fixed prices. As said, the process is a little bit different from existing properties. So often you purchase from a project with fixed prices.
Yeah. So there's no overbidding, but there's unfortunately also no underbidding. It's just what you see is what you get. Can you tell us a little bit about the NHG regulations?
Yes, maybe you can explain that to them, Ludo. I think you.
Yeah, of course, that is totally fine. So NHG, that is an abbreviation for, in Dutch, Nationale Hypotheekgarantie, which in English would translate to the National Mortgage Guarantee. And you should see this as a insurance, where if you purchase a property for a certain amount and then after a few years have to sell due to an emergency situation, for example, if you lose a limb or anything other unthinkable, and you have to sell the property with a loss because the market went down or anything like that, normally you would enter into a debt. But if you have a mortgage via the National Mortgage Guarantee, the National Mortgage Guarantee actually covers that debt for you, and they take that over. And because of this, there's a little bit more insurance for you. Good to know is that in 2022, the max purchase price is 355,000 if you want to use the NHG measure. NHG also has some better interest rates. However, you do pay 0.6% of the purchase price to actually enter a situation where you are able to use the NHG regulation. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
I think that was great.
A question from Alexis. Is a mortgage advisor required, or can you also find the best mortgage by yourself and approach those companies personally?
Good question. No, it's not required. So you're free to do the research yourself. If you ask me, I would recommend at least talking to a mortgage advisor once. If you're interested in having their details, please put your email in the chat, and we can give you some details of mortgage advisor we have very good experience with. But the thing is, we always with mortgage advisors, they are able to offer you 30 different mortgage suppliers. Well, if you're only having a conversation with your bank, of course, those options are limited. But to answer your question, it's not obligated. You are free to do the research yourself and get a mortgage from whoever you want.
Yeah. Yeah, but good to keep in your mind is that consumers only have access to a certain amount of companies, and mortgage advisors have a range of access that goes further than just the consumer mortgages. So also insurance companies and things like that. Gina has a question for you, Rick. She says, what about a second home purchase? For people under 35, is there any difference in costs compared to the first home?
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're buying your second home, yeah, you do have to pay the 2% transfer tax. But is it the second home as an extra house or the second time you purchase a property?
That is not mentioned.
Because as I explained in the presentation, if you're buying a second home as an investment, um, then you need to pay the 8% transfer tax, even though you're under 35.
So I think, yeah, good to know is that the majority of the costs are the same, right? You still need a notary, you'll still need a buying agent, and that kind of stuff. The only difference is that if you're using the property as your main long-term residence, then you can get a discount on your transfer tax, and therefore being at 2% or sometimes even 0%. Whereas if you're using it as a second home, not your main long-term residence, then the government or the tax authority see it as an investment, and because of this, they charge you 8%. So quite a difference to keep in mind. And the 8% indeed needs to come from own pocket. So the bank will only give you 100% of the property value. Any other costs coming out of own pocket. A question from Juan. Are the EHN fixed fees per a specific time period? For example, for a month or anything like that?
No, so we don't have a fixed time period. Um, our main goal is to make you feel at home, and in order to do so, I think you need to purchase the right property. So we totally understand, and I think Ludo experiences it as well, that it could be the case that yeah, you're taking a break. Searching for a property or for a house can be quite intense. So we totally understand if you're saying like, hey, I do need some months or to get some extra savings or just as a break. So no, we don't have a time frame.
Indeed. Then I have another question from Alexis. Do you think there's a benefit to buying an apartment or a benefit to buying a home if you compare the two in regards to costs, taxes, and things like that?
So a benefit regarding an apartment and a house.
Yeah, what would you, is there a difference between the two? Maybe that's easier to say.
The process I would say is more or less the same. However, when you're buying an apartment, you have a homeowners association. So then it's very important to check how is it managed? Is it financially healthy? Um, yeah, what maintenance is planned? What maintenance are they going to do? Do they have enough savings, as I just said? Um, Also, there are some regulations, of course, with the homeowners association. So that would be the difference. Um,
Yeah, I think that's the main difference.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, mm, 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 mm. And do you see the overbidding going down now that the interest rates are going up a bit?
Unfortunately, with the overbidding, I don't see that much of a difference compared to last year. I see more difference with the viewing part. So in the past, it was really difficult to book a viewing. If a property was online for a day, then all spots were gone. And I see that is slightly changing. It's still quite really hard. Um, But with the overbidding, as said, prices are still increasing and rising. So not a major difference. I don't know how it's with you, Ludo, but
No, not really. There's a little bit more offer on the market.
yeah,
With the offer being higher, yeah, people are still very desperate to get a home, but I guess not as desperate maybe as a few months ago. So we see that properties, it's very difficult talking about overbidding because I think we had a question about this as well. But there are no regulations in the Netherlands when it comes to putting an asking price on Funda. So a property can be listed at 450 while having a market value of 550. Yeah, then you already have to overbid 100K. But maybe you can secure the home at 560. Then the actual overbid is in brackets only 10,000 euros, while compared to the asking price, it's 110. So because of that, it's very difficult to gauge how much overbidding is the realistic overbidding. But I would say because of the interest rate increasing, the selling agents are listing the properties a little bit more towards market value, which is nice.
yeah. And one thing I see, which is different from the past, is last year there always was a deadline. So then you're able to view a property, or not only you, but like 50 people, and they set a deadline like next week, Wednesday, 12 o'clock, you need to make an offer. And I see that there's a lot of agents who don't set a deadline anymore. So maybe they try to negotiate a little bit more. Um, so yeah, that's something I would say is different. But in terms of overbidding, it's still yeah, more or less the same.
Yeah, indeed, I agree. Okay, let's see. Well, which one do you think is better to go for, Rick? A new build property or a existing build, especially for someone who is living in a rental property?
It really depends. Yeah, it depends how patient you are. New build, of course, it's really nice. But yeah, it can take a while in order to get a new build. So I would say if you're looking for something on the short term, then definitely look at existing properties. If you're happy with your current place and your rent is not too high, then a new build can definitely be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense indeed. Okay, then do you have any idea? It's always a difficult question. Question from Kumar. Do you have any idea how the market is going to look like further down in 2022 and 2023?
Yes, that's very hard to say. I can't predict the future, but I know, yeah, I can look at the numbers. As said, there is a shortage of houses. So therefore, it is not expected that prices will drop. Actually, it is expected that the prices will increase for the rest of the year. And then in 2023, prices will, or the market will stabilize a little bit. So still, I think we'll see some increases, but not as crazy as in the past. So we'll definitely won't see the increase of 20%. But just a healthy increase, I think that's still going on for the coming years. But we'll have to see how certain regulations will adapt them or influence the market.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the government is working on it on a daily basis to create some more balance in the market. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, it doesn't seem like to slow down that much.
No.
Let's see. Another question from Alexis. What about buying a plot or a piece of land? Is it as competitive as apartments and houses? In Utrecht, it's very expensive. Perhaps there are ways to find cheaper lots. Any suggestions?
Yeah, buying a plot, that's a different process than buying a house. I don't know, Ludo, have you ever purchased a plot?
Yeah, so I currently have a client who's looking into buying a plot. It is something that we get asked quite a lot, but it's not very typical in the Netherlands. As you know, the Netherlands isn't that big as a whole, and the majority already has a destination, either when it comes to having a home on it or what you call it, like farmland and things like that. So if you look on Funda, I think currently in the Netherlands there are only 10 plots available, which is not that much. What you do have is new built neighborhoods, so to say. So instead of buying into a new built apartment, you can buy into a new built neighborhood project. And then, well, the municipality and the developer decide what the outside of the building will look like, but you have a lot to say about the actual internal structure, the amount of bedrooms, etc., etc. So that can be an interesting way of buying a plot. It's, I would say, just a little bit less competitive than existing build, just because there's a lot more work to it when it comes to building your own property together, or co-developing, I would say, with the developer. But it is something that doesn't very happen a lot in the Netherlands, to be honest.
All right.
Cool. Let's see. We have a question from Gina. Is there a benefit in bidding when or bidding and making an offer fully in cash? From own pocket.
Yes, so if you're making an offer in cash, there is a benefit since you're not depending on the value or on a mortgage. So the sellers, they are quite sure, or they are sure the purchase will proceed. If you're paying in full cash, of course, the transfer can also happen a little bit faster since you don't need the 4 weeks or more in order to get your mortgage approved. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, that was the last question actually. That is it.
All right. Then if you have any questions about the process or the service or anything else, you can always schedule an intake with either me, Ludo, or one of my great colleagues. And I hope you enjoy this webinar. Looking forward speaking to you. And otherwise, I wish you all a great evening.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Rick. Thanks everyone for joining. If there are some outstanding questions or you want to talk about your specific situation, indeed, scheduling a call, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. For now, thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.